Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Lincolnshire series, a district of 56 parishes in the north of Lincolnshire. Let's see which one we're visiting today. Welcome to North Lincolnshire again, everybody. Now today you find me on a village green to start off. Now this green used to be a pond which has been filled in. There's plenty of landmarks on here, including that there, which is a tree trunk, and there's plenty of those around here which have been beautifully carved, like the one we saw in Burton upon Stadder. I found 4 up to now, and all 4 will feature in this episode. Also on the green we've got a water pump. There we go. It's very nice, isn't it? We've seen plenty of these before, and this is so iconic that it features in plenty of ways around this village, including on its village sign and on one of those tree trunks. This, my friends, is Scorby. This North Lincolnshire episode is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Graham, near Curtin in Lindsay. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Scawby, which is situated 2 miles southwest of the town of Brigg in North Lincolnshire. The parish includes the former hamlet of Sturton, which over time has merged with Scawby village. Scawby Brook, situated just to the west of Brigg, is also partly within the parish, as is the hamlet of Greetwell on the B1398 to the west. Scawby is mentioned 7 times in the Domesday Book as Scallebi or Scaleby, with a total of 34 households at that time. Its name means Scalli's farmstead. The village is noted for the Nelthorpe family, who once owned the manor and lived at Scawby Hall. Sir John Nelthorpe founded Brigg Grammar School in 1669. Farming and forestry have always been a major part of life in Scawby, and that's still the case today. Agricultural equipment can be seen passing through the village most days of the week. Scawby is known as the birthplace of Sargents Ice Cream, which was first produced at Page Cottage. It's also known for a quiz team named Dobbin, who defeated the Eggheads in 2011. It has a few nice features, probably none more striking than Scawby Hall, but it's also known for the old water pump, a former tower mill, and its beautifully carved tree trunks. Let's have a wander and see what else we can find in this village. We begin the parish of Scawby in the hamlet of Greetwell, which straddles the border between Scawby and Messingham. A linear affair, Greetwell is mainly residential and hugs the B1398, the road to Curtin in Lindsay. Greetwell isn't known for much, but it once had a petrol station, and this is where it was. This was a Rick's garage, and only very recently has the old 1970s style fuel pump been removed. Greetwell also has a car dealer's, PA Autos. The two sites are linked as they were owned by the same family. Other than that, Greetwell also once had a pub, and it also had an army camp during World War II, which was later converted into a prisoner of war camp. From here, it's a simple drive down Messingham Lane. On the way, we pass over the A15 and the route of Ermine Street, the Roman road which we've encountered a few times before in this part of the world. Yeah, driving eastwards into the sun early in the morning is not a good idea, is it? So you didn't really see much of Greetwell, but hopefully I gave you enough information about it. It's a very small place, very linear, right on the border with Messingham, so we might mention it again in the Messingham episode, which will come soon. Okay, for now, we're in Scawby, so let's have a walk around this place. We're still on Messingham Lane here because it continues into Scawby from Greetwell. Our first task is a formality. Here's the parish notice board, one of 3 I found on the main walk. Tick off Scawby people, 11 to go. Next, it's a bus stop. At this particular stop, you can catch the X4, a service which links Brigg to Scunthorpe. To the south of the village, you can also get the 94, which runs from Brigg to Curtin in Lindsey. At the end of Messingham Lane, we hit Vicarage Lane, and there's a large opening in front of you at this point. Those are the entrance gates to Scawby Hall, the village's most impressive property. We'll be back here shortly. Just before we talk about that though, a bit further up the road is the old parsonage, which is a local B&B. This has got glowing reviews, described by one traveller online as one of Lincolnshire's hidden gems, and I tend to agree with him. Okay, that's the trickiest part of the village done, because it's a linear part which goes up towards the A18. The rest of this should be a nice little loop, so let's get on with it. Now we've turned left along a track which runs between Scawby Hall and St Hybald's Church. We'll get a better look at this later on. The 15th century tower has a peal of 5 bells, one of which is 500 years old. Next, it's Scawby Hall, which stands behind a high wall, so it's a little difficult to appreciate its beauty properly. This dates from the 17th century originally, although it has an 18th century frontage and 19th century crenellations. It was first worked on by Richard Nelthorpe in 1605, and members of the Nelthorpe family have lived here ever since. Attached to the house is a large Victorian kitchen garden, which includes a garden shop. It has a huge parkland to the east, and if you live in Scawby, you're allowed to walk in its private woodland. Scawby village developed under the Nelthorpes, but modern development means a lot of the old estate buildings no longer stand. It's about as good as you can do with the hall there, with the big wall in the way. I'm expecting to see a lot of estate related properties here in Scawby. These buildings to my left here are good examples of those, but I imagine the houses and the cottages in this place will all be sort of uniform. That's what we're used to seeing in estate villages. Next, we've got the village green, and here's the first of the carved tree trunks. I found 4 in total. They all have sayings on them, and this one says, "When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure." That's fittingly sited next to Scawby's War Memorial, which takes the form of a 3-panelled wall. Unusually, this isn't a listed structure, but names from both World Wars are remembered on this all the same. Behind those, there's an old red phone box, which is now a book exchange. Even though this area is widely known as the Green, when the pond which used to occupy the green was filled in 1953, it was officially named Coronation Gardens. Moving on, here's another iconic Scawby building. This is the Forge, which has altered very little since it was built 200 years ago. Next door to this is Joiner's Cottage, and that too is a well-known Scawby property. Okay, so from here it's a walk down this little ginnel, I suppose, onto a housing estate, and for the majority of the next sort of half an hour, I think, while I'm walking, I'll be passing residential properties which look a little bit like these, so probably not much to talk about in this section. There are a few things amongst the houses. Here's Scawby's old tower mill. Known as Scawby Mill, this was opened in 1829, but the present tower was built as part of a house after the original tower collapsed during renovation work in 1994. Where Mill Lane meets Gainsborough Lane, we get treated to this magnificent vista. We're facing southeast here, so somewhere in the far distance over there is North Kelsey, and people wonder why I love Lincolnshire so much. On Gainsborough Lane, there's a care home. This is Rathside Care Home, which specialises in care for those aged 60 or over with Alzheimer's disease and/or dementia. It can accommodate a maximum of 32 residents. Off Gainsborough Lane is St Hibald's Grove, one of Scorby's residential areas. Fun fact, Scorby's residents are encouraged to keep their front gardens neat and tidy by way of an annual parish competition for the most attractive front garden. Now, when I planned this route for Scawby, at this point I was looking on the map for a little cut through onto the main road, and I couldn't see one, but I thought, okay, I'll walk around this anyway, because there may be a little gap somewhere where I can access the main road. If not, it doesn't matter, we'll just walk all the way around it and back to Gainsborough Lane. It'll take a bit longer, but I'm hoping for that little shortcut if I can find one. I didn't find a gap, so Gainsborough Lane will have to do. This will take us to a junction at Scawby's southern end. We're effectively in Sturton at this point, a small hamlet which has merged with Scawby as it's grown. On the corner is carved tree number 2. The message on this one reads, "Never be afraid to sit a while and think." I love the carvings on this one too. On the right there's an owl, and to the left a hare. Whoever did these is supremely skilled. There's a second phone box close by which currently displays some images. These are the Scawby Scarecrows, which were themed around children's TV. I would imagine this was Sturton's phone box originally. Speaking of children, the next landmark is the village school. This is Scawby Academy, which is recognised as one of the finest schools in North Lincolnshire. There's an excellent preschool here next to the school called Stepping Stones. And behind the school we have the playing field. Scawby playing field. Pedestrian access this way. Let's go and check this out. Here's Scawby playing field, where there's a football pitch, a playground, some tennis courts, a pavilion and a few other bits. Once again, all kept neat and tidy. This is where we come across carved tree number 3. Rather aptly, seeing as we're in a playground, this one tells us that play is the work of childhood. I happen to recognise that quote too. It's from the renowned psychologist John Piaget, a name which brought back memories of my college days. It's a name I thought I would never have to research ever again. Anyway, also in here is an iron beacon, and this has recently been adorned with this shield, marking the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II earlier this year. Back to West Street, and next we pass Scawby's main shop. This lovely new Lincolnshire co-op store opened its doors in 2019. This isn't the only shop in the village, there's also a post office and a fish and chip shop further along the road. Okay, we've really only got 2 major landmarks left, those being the pub and the church, which you caught a brief glimpse of earlier. Just going to show you Francis Gardens here first. It's an area of infilling off the main road, and across the road there's also another newish area. I think it's a little bit older than Francis Gardens. That's Coach House Gardens. And the village hall too, which I'd totally forgotten about. Many local groups use this on a regular basis. It opened in 1972 and in doing so replaced the old village hall, which was known as the Hut. In 1987 it won the Humberside Hall of the Year award. Outside it, we have the 4th and final carved tree. This one's the best one. It says, "A mix of dwellings blend well together, let's hope our village goes on forever." It also features the village pump, the mill and the church. Across the road is the Sutton Arms. This is named after Reverend Robert Sutton, who married the youngest sister of the last Nelthorpe baronet in 1847. The pub has changed a few times over the years, but it's still one of the go-to places for the locals. And speaking of go-to places, here we've got the post office and the chippy, which I mentioned earlier. At this point, I came across a fabulous information board where a lot of this video's info has come from. So here we've got a map, and I can show you my route here. So I park down here off Messingham Lane, and I've basically walked up here, left on Vicarage Lane as far as sort of here where the old parsonage was, back along here, past Scawby Hall, along a footpath, across here to the village green, up Church Street, cut through into this estate, down Mill Lane, down Gainsborough Lane, around here, that's where I was looking for a path through to the main road, but I couldn't find one, down Gainsborough Lane, across here, and into the playing field around the school, and I'm currently there at number 10, and number 10 is of course the Sutton Arms, which I've just spoken about. This board is extremely informative. A lot of the things in this video will have come from this, and we're still to see a few things, because now I'm going to turn up this road here past the post office, which you've just seen, back to the village green, because there's something else there that I still haven't spoken about. There's something there I haven't spoken about, and something there I haven't spoken about. So yeah, a bit more than 2 landmarks left. The board doesn't mention this, but this was a primitive Methodist chapel built in 1895. It was still in active use until as late as 2012. The village also once had an 1834 Wesleyan chapel, but the village hall now stands where that was. These were interesting. Between Chapel Lane and Church Street is a row of almshouses. There are 4 in total, and they were built by the Nelthorpes in 1778 for the poor and elderly of the village. Here's an old school which dates from 1854. The original school was built by the Nelthorpes in 1705. In 1902, a new school was built over the road from this for infants, and this became a junior school. The current school opened in 1973. And lastly, we have the Church of St Hybald again. It's built in the early English style, but was substantially rebuilt in 1843 and 1870. There's a row of 12 yew trees which lead up to this, known as the 12 Apostles. Right, let's see if we are open. Nope, we are locked. We are locked. Never mind, can't get inside this one today. Never mind though, because I do have something else that I can talk about, and it's right at the end of the drive here as you come up towards the church. If you turn right, let's go and check that out instead. And the landmark in question is this White House you can see behind me. That apparently, according to the information board which we saw earlier, is Scorby's old post office. Definitely not a post office anymore, very much a house. There you go. Now from here, all I need to do is head back to Messingham Lane, which is this way, turn left and go back to the car. We're not finished with this episode yet though. We need to drive towards Brigg to finish it off, because there are still a couple of things within Scawby Parish which we haven't talked about. Before I do that though, you guys need today's picture bit. Now, also falling within Scawby's boundaries, there's a power station, and it's this building behind me. This is the Brigg Renewable Energy Plant. On the edge of Brigg in Scawby Brook, there's a power station. This is the Brigg Renewable Energy Plant, which has been in operation since 2016. This is the largest dedicated straw-fired biomass plant in the UK. Although relatively small as power stations go, the plant generates 40 megawatts of electricity every hour, which is enough to supply 75,000 homes, and as a result, it saves over 250,000 tonnes of CO2 every year. The plant is owned by BWSC North Links Limited. A power station in this area is nothing new. There's been one here since the early 90s. Originally, Glanford Brigg Power Station occupied land adjacent to this. It was a gas-fired plant which opened in 1993. Glanford Brigg was often known as Brigg Power Station colloquially. It was built just to the south of a former British sugar beet factory, a site which would eventually be occupied by the current power station. And to finish with, we're here at the River Ancombe, which is the parish boundary. Although I do need to explain something about parish boundaries here. This is where 3 parishes meet, not just 2. Where I'm stood right now is still in Scorby, and it includes this leisure centre. That's the Ancombe Leisure Centre, still within Scawby Parish. On the other side of the Ancombe, that's Brigg. That's the town of Brigg, which will be coming soon. Look at this bridge, by the way. Isn't that amazing? Nice bit of stonework there, bit of masonry for you. Now, there's also a 3rd parish here too. On the other side of the road, that is Water's Edge. And that is not Brigg and it's not Scawby. That is Broughton. And that is where we will be starting the next episode of North Lincolnshire. So all I've got to do is walk across the road and get started with Broughton. For now, this has been the parish of Scawby, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.